Welcome back to the Men Seeking Freedom podcast. I'm Michael Lynch. Very excited today to have as a guest Jeff Laughton from the Undaunted Man and your relationship architect. If those things alone don't make you curious, we're going to pull it all out of him today. Jeff comes to us, by the way, and one thing I would add in, Jeff, as you introduce yourself, I got acquainted with the Boulder, Colorado area, believe it or not, 30 years ago when a friend of mine had lived out there briefly at that point in time. So Jeff's out in a beautiful part of the country, and we welcome him to the podcast. Jeff, thank you for joining us. Introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Michael. Great to be here. Appreciate the invitation. So I'll introduce myself by saying that on a professional level, I'm a relationship coach. That's your relationship architect part. And I'm in my 33rd year of doing that work. And then the Undaunted Man is the latest iteration of men's work that I've been leading now for 26 years. And, I'm an old timer, been around doing both of those things a long time. And then the other thing that I always like to share when people say, "Who are you?" is, I'm a husband, and that's one of my favorite roles. It's part of what got me out of a corporate life into doing relationship coaching. So I've been with my wife for 44 years, and I'm a dad, and we have one son together, and who, thank God, turned out to be a really great man. And so we did something right. And I'm also almost 4 years into being a grandfather to my grandson Asher, who I adore. And and then because I didn't have enough other stuff to do, I'm also an author. I've written 2 internationally best-selling books, co-authored 3 other books. Um, and then I also do speaking, so public speaker. Love being on podcasts, so doing more and more of that lately. And then I'm also a complete and total music freak. So one of my big passions in life is music. I wish I played it. I don't, but I love listening to it. So underneath this very sophisticated looking 68-year-old face, I'm still about a 17-year-old headbanger from the Bay Area. So there you go.
Ooh, that we will go on a separate podcast, which I don't currently host, but I do love music too. And when you just said the Bay Area, the one thing I will say to you, you'll relate to this name, the Tower of Power was one of the more influential bands in my youth and continues to be. So we'll get into that subject. Thank you for talking about it was kind that you referenced your roles that you
Mm-hmm.
play in your life. I like to tell people who want to understand both the men seeking freedom movement as well as the brotherhood that we have is, we tend to look at our lives and talk about things relating to 3 buckets: our relationships slash roles in our life being one, second one, mental and physical health, and third, career from a both satisfaction and an impact perspective. And as you can see, just from the way you introduced yourself, you kind of covered pieces of all 3 of those areas. So thank you for setting that up. Oh, a couple things about Jeff too, by the way, for the audience to know. Men seeking freedom and the brotherhood are relatively new phenomenon in 2026. I had something interesting happen in the setup of this long before there was even a website. I shoot out a message onto LinkedIn saying, can you please refer me to people who do work helping men? And you know what was interesting about that, Jeff? I didn't have a timer out, but somewhere in like the 5 to 7 minutes after posting it,
Hmm.
I got a woman who you and I know are connected to who said, you have to talk to Jeff Laughton. And I just thought, you know what? First of all, I was excited to see people respond in that way. And it was kind of
Right.
it was the first inclination I had of, oh, I hope there's like a large universe of people out there. Because I have not asked up until that point
Hmm.
to go down that road. So that couple of things, it says something that's quite a little testimonial, because even on social media, can be kind of quirky about how proactive they are to respond to things. And I was
Right.
like, oh my God, I got to get to know this guy eventually here. Basically, and at that time, I think I had communicated with you and said, hey, Jeff, I've not even got this thing set up yet. So there's some thought there.
Yeah.
You, so you have shared some things with me that we want to spend some time here today. One of the first things you had said in your notes to me was in terms of relationship and marriage, how to keep it alive and healthy for the long haul or not. Tell us a little bit about your thinking behind that.
Sure. I one thing I make up is that my generation, our generation, because you're just a little bit
We're
younger than
peers.
me, and and thank God we both know what is hip. Um,
Whoa, boy. I'm going to have to insert this into the podcast notes so people know what that is if they
yeah,
don't.
yeah. Um, so the I was brought up with the whole Hollywood idea of marriage is an ideal, and that ideally it's something that you do for life, and you just fall in love, and then you get married, and then you live happily ever after, which, the current divorce statistics reveal to be a complete and utter pile of bullshit. So I went into my own relationship, this relationship. I had a few other serious relationships before I met my wife. I went into this one as a young man. I met my wife when I was 24. And I went into it thinking, am I going to feel, I wouldn't want to get married unless I could really feel this is the person I really want to spend the rest of my life with. And it was all in retrospect coming from kind of that enculturation that, at least in this country, we've been getting in movies and TV and romance novels and Hallmark movies, all that kind of stuff. And what I've learned, not only in my own marriage, but from, working with so many couples over the last few decades, that the reality is that not every marriage is meant to be forever. I, in fact, there's some, I don't even know how they made it as long as they made it, to keep it real. Um,
Truth be told, Jeff, you're actually speaking with someone who I think falls into that category. So no, I appreciate what you're saying there.
yeah. And so it's important to, when I say in my, when I'm interviewed or when I'm working with people or talking to people that are curious about maybe working with me, is because most people who come to me for relationship help are trying to figure out, most of them, can you help us fix it? And I'm always really transparent about saying no. I can't fix anybody's relationship. But what I can do and do is I can help each partner get clear on, is the marriage as it currently is really serving each person's highest self, their highest longing, their highest level of integrity with who they are. And if it isn't, is there a pathway for it to actually be able to start doing that newly if you're a couple that's been together for a long time? And most of my clients are couples who have been together a while.
I was just going
Well,
to, Jeff, one quick question in what
yeah,
you're saying right now. Is it almost, as you talked about that, is it exclusively couples,
no.
or do you okay, you'll work with the individuals involved too?
Yeah, well, in fact, I do work with individuals, period. Because I also get a lot of men and women who have gone through a lot of relationships and are feeling really stuck or frustrated. Why can't I make a relationship work? I keep picking the wrong people, and then I have to give them the inconvenient truth. Well, sorry, bud, but you're the common denominator, not all of them. So you gotta work on you. And I'm a huge believer that any romantic partnership, marriage or not, any committed romantic partnership rises or fails on the relationship that each partner has with themselves. And I look at the relationship as an awesome and at best a really fun sandbox to be discovering that my relationship with me, my marriage, and my child when he was growing up taught me so much about who I am, who I thought I was, and where I was wrong about who I thought I was. And so relationship can be an amazing growth tool of self. But then when it really works between two partners, you're helping each other grow, you're bouncing things off each other. But the other thing that I've gotten even more verbal about publicly and in my practice is that when most people fall in love, we are biochemically and neurologically drunk.
Meaning we're not seeing things as clearly just based on the circumstances that are part of that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's and whatever anyone might believe in terms of a higher power or quantum physics, things like that, one of the most brilliant designs ever, if you ever explore evolutionary biology, is men and women were incredibly designed to how our brains are different, our biology, our hormones, to make sure that more humans happen. And so all, pheromones and hormones and, the neurotransmitters, particularly oxytocin, which is and dopamine. Woo! We love our dopamine. And so we meet somebody, regardless of your sexual orientation, you meet somebody, and I do believe there's a mystical side of it, but just in terms of where our brains go, we're each attracted to what we're attracted to, right? We each have kind of a default I like these types of bodies. I like these types of skin tones, whatever. And we see somebody, meet somebody, and this little beginning sparkler goes off in the brain. And then if we start getting to know somebody and we're beginning to fall in love, what's actually happening is a whole series of neurological and biochemical dynamics that are going on called limerence, like a limerick, only it's limerence. And without that, I think Earth would have, the human race would have disappeared not long after we started walking on two legs. And, but here's the bummer. The limerence is awesome. Who doesn't like it? It's the best. It is literally intoxicating, and it is 100% of the time temporary.
Temporary.
And so what ends up happening is that people fall in love, that limerence comes in, and they're very sincere usually. When if they get married, when they say their vows, they mean it, blah, blah, blah. And then that limerence wears off. And if you then happen to have children, once you become a parent, everything changes. Everything. And it takes people by surprise. And a lot of why people come to me where I say, it isn't about fixing it, it's about getting to know who each of you are, seeing if you both like and can embrace who you actually are now. Because a lot of people come to me that have been together, say, 20 years. Can you help us get back to how it was 20 years ago? And I'm like, in my mind, I say, well, God bless you. And are you out of your fucking mind? No, that's not going to happen.
You don't know you don't have like a wand, a magic wand or anything like that you use in your.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd probably be a billionaire if I did, but it wouldn't be real. I think it's important, circling back to your question, it's important to recognize that a romantic partnership is every bit a living, dynamic, organic thing that our conditioning wants to put in, like not mahogany, amber. We want to amber it like a prehistoric spider. It's so good. Let me put it in amber. I'll stick it in my heart, and it's going to feel this way for the next 50 or 60 years. And that is not how life works. So it's always about what's here now. Do I love who you have become? Am I compatible with who you've become? Are you compatible for me? Am I compatible for you? Because the reality is, too, with empty nest couples, when the role of parent is no longer literally custodial, then couples are left going, you look familiar. Who are you? Why are we together? What what
If I can
what do we
insert some,
like to do together?
Jeff, if I can insert some market research for you, market
Yeah, yeah,
research, market research based on my roller coaster ride through the role of online dating.
yeah.
I think one of the things that's there's a lot of things that fascinate me at this stage of life trying to date. And I think I may have said, yeah, I'm divorced with no children. I'm It's not uncommon to meet women who are divorced with 3 to 5 children. None of this is right or wrong. I'm not making any judgment there, but you're kind of starting to hit into an area that makes me curious of how did you manage to generate that level of activity that resulted in 3 to 5 children, and then you're out here with me out in no man's land, no person's land, So yeah, you're bringing up the point of in the so one thing that you're pointing out to me that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about as a non-parent is yeah, everything changes the second they've done their job, so to say, of
Hmm.
they haven't failed to launch, they've got the kids going, but then all of a sudden it's like now where do we go?
Right. And there's an even more fundamental, primal question before that one, which is, who am I? Who am I besides husband or wife, mother or father, in that context, right? And even in relationships where they were never kids, when we hit midlife, a lot of things change. And for me, life is a never ending exploration of that question: who am I? And not my identity, but who am I? You know, if I lost my business tomorrow, if my house burned down, if my wife died or left me, who am I without all that stuff? And that question scares the shit out of most people that I know, myself included. But it's the best question to be in a constant curious inquiry about.
I had just posted something earlier today online about, and this comes from reading a lot, and somebody I'd read recently was talking about stop doing, start being. And the doing part is the everyone can pack their life with activity, can get into whether it's cruise control or this just, hey, this allows me to not deal with things. But what I love about, you didn't say it in those words, but the being part is who is Jeff? Who's Jeff? Who is he now, and who does he want to become? I'm fascinated by the fact, and I don't know if this is a male exclusive thing, Jeff, or not, but I'm fascinated by the fact of why are we uncomfortable as a society dealing with that? Or is this just, is it human nature? But yeah, why do we not want to stop and declare, okay, Jeff, you tell me who you are minus your titles. I'll tell you who I am, and then we'll both get really wacky and say, here's like the I know I'm on a journey. Here's where I'd like the journey to go for me. What gets us to want to even speak to each other that way?
I'll tell you, you know, and this is really at the heart of why my work with men, what got me into men's work was, you know, when I was really going through a period in my life in my early 40s where that had kind of gotten up on the radar because at that time I I had built a very successful corporate career, amazing wife, two kids, living in a very comfortable home in the Bay Area, lovely place to hang out. I had everything that I was raised to believe is what makes you a success, and it should make you happy. And by the time I was 35, I had all of that, and I was a workaholic. I weighed 285 pounds, and other than my marriage, I was miserable, absolutely miserable. And I, like a lot of men, was kind of like, "What? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
How you doing? Oh, great. Yeah, great wife, great kids, great job, nice house, good money. What else is there?" And I was fucking miserable. And I had to go through an acute physical breakdown that had me bedridden for a month at 35.
Ugh.
Right? And I lost all the weight, over 100 pounds, but I didn't change anything else. And then I started having panic attacks, which I'd never had before. And that was when I realized I think I need some help. So, to me, particularly for men, but not by any means exclusive to men, we won't look at that stuff because we're conditioned that who we are is what we do. How much money we make, where we live, do we meet all the criteria of, a successful life, quote unquote. And we're also conditioned to not really look at our feelings or have feelings, which last time I checked, to have a successful relationship, you kind of need feelings. And you have to be willing to face them, good, bad, and ugly. So I think we just it's better now. Younger men are much more willing to ask, who am I? And what do I want? Why am I making, or how am I making the choices I make? So there's a lot of ego that doesn't want to look at that stuff because by nature, how we identify ourselves is the map that we were conditioned to follow instead of the one in here, the one deep inside. So I hope
What,
that answered your
so, well,
question.
yeah, well, one of the things you said is a good segue in terms of, so you said I was 35, I was miserable, and I think the way you worded it was the best thing in my life was my wife. I think you said it that way. Hmm.
Yep.
That's a, by the way, in spite of what you were going through, that's a nice thing to be able to say. Talk,
Yeah.
if we don't mind, if you don't mind shifting a little bit
Sure.
into, on the same theme, but 44 years of marriage, ability to be able to call what that circumstance was at a time and thankfully survive it.
Mhm.
Um, how did, here's the question. This is a selfish question. As a
It's
guy who
okay.
didn't, as a guy
It's
who
your
didn't,
show.
as a guy who didn't get to a decade on the marriage thing, share with the audience the ingredients, your ingredients of getting to 44 years and sounding like you enjoy it.
I To say I enjoy it would be a bit of an understatement because at the risk of coming off like a buzzkill, 44 years is an achievement, right? By a lot of standards. But I've been quoted on this repeatedly, and it's still the truth. Longevity doesn't mean anything. My mom and dad were together for 50 years. And I think it's fair to say they hated each other for 49 of them.
Wow.
So longevity, more often than not, is more an indicator of masochism and people's capacity for suffering.
And I thought the whole time it was resilience, Jeff. Come on now. Wow.
To do it well does require resilience. And so, to get to the heart of the answer to your question, one, the love has never gone away. And I also am really pragmatic philosophy that I have is if you look at relationship, romantic relationship, as equivalent, like metaphorically, like a poker game. Um, and for anyone who doesn't know anything about poker, you don't get to play a hand of poker without putting an ante on the table. You got to bet some money. You got to put money at stake just to play. So to me, love is the ante. If you don't have that, you've got nothing. Nothing to really cohere. Because maybe initially people get together because of lust,
Yeah.
but lust wears off. That's part of the whole limerence thing I was talking about a bit earlier. So the love has never gone anywhere. Another secret, I guess, is that we both have approached relationship from the perspective that it's the best growth vehicle on earth. That it's not just to have us feeling 24/7, 365 endorphins. It is a growth vehicle. So we have always looked at our marriage as an opportunity for personal individual development and collaborative development, and also the feeding of the union. Like whatever my energy and Sarah, that's my wife's name, Sarah's energy, my energy, it comes together and it's got its own kind of alchemical mysteries to it. Nothing we ever would have predicted back then or even yesterday. So understanding that there's a higher purpose to marriage than just our egos going, ooh. And then when you become parents, if you become parents, that's a whole nother thing. So a third thing is that we have enough common values. If you don't have to have identical values, but if you don't have enough common ones, there's no glue because the attraction comes and goes. Sex comes and goes. And life throws a bunch of curveballs at us. And so you used the word resilience a minute ago. Sarah and I are extremely resilient people. If you have resilience and you know yourself well enough, then you can get through a lot that you might not think you could ever get through. And then lastly, I would say that when times got difficult, I tell people we're on our fifth marriage right now. We've gone through 5 different phases of our relationship. The one we're in now is the final stage. We're old. Sure. The end is coming for one of us, whenever it does.
I want to interject an inside joke.
Mhm.
Jeff, you're still a young man. That again,
Baby.
I'm gonna put all these links in the notes here just so people. But I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Continue
yeah,
though about
no,
the.
I appreciate that.
So,
I also love Tower Power. So
so
we're,
this is you're calling this the fifth phase that you're
yeah.
in.
So in other words, to recognize that, and I alluded to it a little bit ago, relationships are organic. We are organic. We're not wired to be stagnant for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I think Bob Dylan once said, he who's not busy being born is busy dying. And so we are committed. So this is the fifth ingredient, I think. Commitment. when it gets hard, are we committed to giving it our best shot? If you give it your best shot and it still isn't meant to be anymore, a lot of empty nesters end up divorcing because they find out that what they want now, they're not compatible. They don't fit. And there's no shame in that. If the listeners got one thing out of everything that you've been kind enough to let me yammer on about, it's we deserve to have what we long for. And if you're in a relationship that makes that impossible for one or the other partner, the most loving thing you can do, in my opinion, is you free each other up to go get that now. Because what matters to me at 68 is radically different for the most part than what mattered to me when I was 25.
What fascinates me about what you just said, I'm always amazed at how we're not able to or unwilling sometimes to answer some very basic things. But the way you word it is the key thing. You just said, we deserve what we long for. Boy, that's powerful, and I couldn't agree with you more. Question I have is, and I don't know if you can give an answer to this, but just go up to people beyond your wife, go up to
Mm-hmm.
people in your life, and hopefully you have a lot of them who would answer it and say, what, when it comes to deserving what you long for, what are you longing for?
Mm-hmm.
Are we taking enough time, Jeff, to even allow ourselves to ponder that question?
Oh, hell no. Not in my experience.
I, I don't see
You
it.
know, and not to be a schmuck, but that reality is what's kept me in business for 30 some odd years. But it, I think the main reason why a lot of people don't ponder that is because, and you alluded to this a little while ago, we're all too busy being human doings instead of human beings. I just went away a week ago yesterday. Me and 7 other men in our Undaunted Men community went out to the desert in Utah, and we spent 3.5 days each in our own campsite. So once we dispersed and set up our tents, we didn't see each other or any other human being for 3 days. And we had no electronics, no books, no music. All we had was ourselves and some of the most beautiful countryside you've ever seen. And nothing to distract us. And you learn a lot about who you are and who you're not when you have no place to hide.
In 2026, I think they would define that as torture, what you just went through. Now, granted, I'm being a little bit facetious here. You obviously gave yourself the chance to understand the value to that. I think you could just horrify people. Just is that something you do periodically with the group, or was this kind of an extreme thing that you did?
No, we do it 4 times a year.
Oh, you do.
We take men out. That's one of the things at Undaunted Man that we offer both our existing community and any man that, wants to go have that kind of an experience, which, I've done things similar to that, but this is the first time where, I mean, I hadn't gone camping in 50 some odd years. So doing something I haven't done since I was a teenager, out in the middle of nowhere, no food, and none of my normal distraction. I was scared to death at times. But it's really cool to find out, one, you don't die. Two, I actually got to see parts of myself that I need to work on, right? Some more healing to be done. But I also, and here's the cool part, I also found parts of myself that in near 45 years of working for a living and working hard all the time, I got to find parts of myself I didn't know were in there that I really like and that I want to spend more time with.
That's
And that's worth everything.
if people hearing this can get past the initial horror of contemplating this, there's the selfish side of me is like, oh, I can only imagine how he must have felt or they felt, either both as they were going through it or when they were done. It was like it's a whole different type of cleanse.
Yeah, great way to put it, Michael. Very much so.
I want to shift gears one final time because I told you this earlier. Your notes prior to this hit a real hot button with me. Jeff includes in his notes to me of things to talk about getting your parents out of your marriage slash relationship, even if your parents have passed. That's what Jeff put in his notes. The only slight editorial I will add to it is, oh, this subject really fascinates me for a variety of reasons, and that's all I will say.
Mhm.
Jeff, what does that mean about the role of your parents in the relationship that you're in?
I think I can answer it relatively quickly. I mean, we could have a whole show just on this, probably, but I'll give you, I'll try and condense it into a good, juicy soundbite. Um, I would guess that everybody that is watching or listening to this right now, unless you're like under 25, has had the experience, has a memory somewhere in your childhood or your adolescence or both, where you were really upset with your mom or dad. And, you didn't like how they were disciplining you, or you didn't like, you're not letting me go play with Bobby, and I did my chores, and now you're telling me I can't. The phrase that I venture most human beings said at least once growing up, quote, when I grow up, I'm not going to be like that. Or another one of my favorite variations of that, when I have children, I'm never doing that to my kids. Guess what? Yes, you are. And yes, you will. The all of our major personality development happens between birth and about 7 or 8. All the programming, if you will, that gets into us through our lived experience in our family systems. And no human I know or have ever heard of, no one gets out of childhood unscathed. No one. You could have the most loving, well-meaning parents, and you're going to get wounded. And when we get wounded, we come up with defense mechanisms, survival strategies to minimize more wounding. And then we have other strategies to try and get more of our needs met that our parents weren't adequately meeting. And that gets wired into our brain like software. And we don't even realize until, like, I remember when my son was about 5, I said something to him that right after it left my lips, I was like, oh, fuck. That's my mom. My mom said that to me, and always painful every time she did it. And it was unconscious. It blipped out, and I saw the look of devastation, might be too strong a word, but my son was like, and I was horrified and gratefully very humbled. So, well, okay. The training, the programming, it can be overwritten, but we, by default, most of us respond and react to our partner, particularly in conflict, from that blueprint that we got growing up. And so if you're in a relationship and your partner's annoying you, or your partner's letting you know you're annoying me, and you look at how you relate to it and how you communicate within it, I virtually guarantee you will at least find an echo of how your mom and dad either were with you directly or how they dealt with conflict. And you're going to find yourself, oh my God, I'm doing it. And you want that to happen because if it were to never happen, you'd never be able to know how much your child version of yourself is running your marriage versus where your adult, your wise adult, mature self could be running the marriage and making it all the richer.
I hear so many, I see situations, I read about situations, you just reaffirmed it. These situations in life where the term that always comes up to me is being self-aware. And
Yeah.
whenever I do something, reacting to something during the day, and it feels horrible, I will take a minute to go, can I? Okay, so I reacted to that event.
Mm-hmm.
Was it really about that event? Or was it really about a wound in me? It takes this stuff takes some maturity,
Yeah.
some desire to want to learn that because it's very easy to skip this step. But
Mm-hmm.
a term too that I've read, you didn't say it, but I read as you talk about birth to eight, the mother wound and the father
Yep.
wound.
Yep.
Now that's kind of those. When I first heard that, I was like, wow, that's offensive terminology. And then I thought about it and I've read about it, and it's like, no, it's just kind of part of human nature in terms
Yep.
of it's just another one of these things to be aware of in
Yeah.
life. And because even, you know, I was lucky I grew up with who I think were spectacular parents. And with that said, I can spend time thinking about how did each one of them have an impact on me. It's just another one of these things, Jeff, that we kind of just let it blow by us.
Right.
This
Yeah.
has
Rich material.
this has been a treat, my friend. Thank you very much for
Likewise.
so for the individuals who want to get more of a understanding of Jeff Laughton, where can we're not going to strictly direct them to links to Tower of Power songs. Where can people learn more about you, Jeff?
You can go to, if you're interested in learning more about the work that I do with men, go to the undauntedman.com. Lots there, and we have a YouTube channel by that same name with a lot of great content there. If you're interested in the relationship side of things, be it, romantic relationship or just relationship to your life, go to yourrelationshiparchitect.com.
Excellent. I will have all three of those all three links in your
Great.
profile. Jeff, thank you. And as for everyone who's watched this, please share it with loved ones in your life that would benefit from Jeff's great perspective. One other thing in housekeeping with Men Seeking Freedom in the Brotherhood, visit menseekingfreedom.com. We have a Brotherhood meeting coming up next week. We'd love to have you sample, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.